What if I told you all human beings alive today are Africans? So here's the million-dollar question. Is racism in our DNA? Why is it so prevalent throughout the world? To answer this, we need to take a trip down memory lane to the 1820s when Dr. Samuel Morton, a highly respected physician and scientist, claimed he could define the intellectual ability of a race by skull capacity. According to Dr. Morton, a large skull meant a larger brain and a higher intellectual capacity, whereas a small skull indicated a smaller brain and a lower intellectual capacity. Using this logic, Dr. Morton proved that Europeans had the highest brain capacity and Africans had the lowest, with other various race groups falling in between. Gosh, the lengths that people with big heads go to cover their insecurities. Thankfully, we're now living in the 21st century where modern science has debunked this myth, but many people around the world still hold it as gospel. An American white man gets the science wrong hundreds of years ago, but his ideology remains and has a ripple effect on billions of us. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Researchers who have studied the human genome over the past few decades have revealed that the whole category of race has no genetic or scientific basis. In fact, we now know that all humans are closely related, more closely related than all chimps, even though there are many more humans around today. We all have the same collection of genes, with everyone having slightly different versions of them. And this brings us to a mind-boggling truth. All people alive today are Africans. Yes, you heard that right. We're all Africans. So to all the racists out there, now would be the right time to bang your head against the wall. Our species evolved in Africa, with the most recent fossil find from Morocco suggesting that anatomically modern human features began appearing as long as 300,000 years ago. For the next 200,000 years or so, we remained in Africa, and all non-Africans today are descended from a few thousand humans who left Africa maybe 60,000 years ago. Oh, and another fun fact that will blow our minds: Africa is a continent, not a country. Since the migrants were a small subset of Africa's population, they left with only a fraction of Africa's genetic diversity. In fact, there's more diversity in Africa than on all other continents combined. So what's the explanation for the visible differences in skin color? It doesn't take a genius to figure out: exposure to sunlight. After our pre-human ancestors shed most of their body hair, we evolved highly visible differences in skin color through tiny tweaks in our DNA. Dark pigmentation helped in coping with the intense African sun, while lighter skin became advantageous in regions with less sunlight, as it promotes the production of vitamin D. And this brings us to today's nugget of wisdom. There's no evidence whatsoever that the groups we commonly call races have distinct genetic identities. In fact, there is ample variation within the races, such that a European might be more genetically similar to an Asian than to a fellow European. So how did we end up here? Like many predicaments in our world today, race is a social concept, and we are all born race agnostic until society teaches us that not all skin colors are equal. Of course, just because race is made up, it doesn't make it any less powerful, as it still determines people's perceptions, opportunities, and experiences. From a psychological perspective, racism can be seen as a defense mechanism with numerous stages. Like every other problem in life, it starts off when we're feeling insecure and disconnected, and we begin to search for a group that is bigger than us in order to strengthen our sense of identity and find a sense of belonging. We see this in all avenues of life, people taking pride in their religious or national identity or in the sports team they support. But this could potentially lead to the second stage, where we begin to develop hostile feelings towards others in order to further strengthen our sense of identity. The most extreme manifestation of this is when we look at other groups as scapegoats who deserve to be attacked and murdered. From this perspective, racism can be seen as a manifestation of psychological ill health. After all, individuals with a strong sense of inner security and a stable sense of self do not feel the need to strengthen it through group identity. Racism comes in many different forms, and sometimes in subtle, hidden ways. Most of us are guilty of it in one form or another at a certain point in our life. Quite often, we tend to look at people only skin deep. forgetting there's a person beneath the skin who's living in the same crazy world we're living in and is facing similar challenges. Think about that before we judge someone again. It's the people who don't recognize the racism within themselves that can be the most damaging because they don't see it. That's all we have for today's rant. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have you ever been a victim of racism? Or are you the perpetrator due to all the social conditioning? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, smash the like button and subscribe so that you never miss out on the People's Rant.